Ross Feingold joins us live from Taipei to discuss President-elect Donald Trump's upcoming administration and his so-called trade wars. Good evening, Ross. Thanks for joining us on the program today. Now, firstly, how might Donald Trump's return to the White House reshape U.S. trade policies in 2025?
President Trump has been very clear on trade issues, probably more so than almost any other policy area that he discussed during his campaign. And he's promised to increase tariffs on goods coming from a number of different U.S. trade partners, including friendly countries like Mexico and Canada, as well as adversary countries like China. For China, he's threatened tariffs as high as 60%. So it's very possible that on his first day in office on Monday afternoon U.S. time, that he might actually do something with regard to tariffs. It definitely won't come as a surprise if tariffs are among the first batch or within the first batch of executive orders that he issues.
So would it be accurate to say he might reignite trade wars with key partners like China, the EU and Mexico, or adopt a more collaborative approach? What do you think?
Certainly, for the countries that he does raise tariffs on, those countries will take retaliatory action. They'll raise tariffs on goods coming into their countries from the United States. And that's a situation that's frequently described as a trade war, where two countries are increasing tariffs on each other's goods. So it's certainly possible we're going to see that. The first Trump term, when he raised tariffs on goods from different countries, most notably China, it seemed that producers they were willing to eat some of that increased cost. And of course, in some cases, they pass on part of that increased cost to consumers as well. But the room to eat those costs or pass them along to consumers may not be as large this time. So if the tariffs do go up another 60% on Chinese goods, it's certainly possible that consumers in the U.S. will feel that. And what Trump hopes is that instead of buying Chinese goods, consumers will buy made in America goods.
Right. And how could new tariffs under Trump's administration, how else could tariffs under Trump's administration impact American industries and consumers?
Well, again, the reality would be that consumers would be facing higher costs at the point of sale when they're buying these goods, whether that's everyday goods or those rare purchases, things like dishwashers or washing machines and dryers. The sticker price is going to be a lot higher for these kinds of goods. So again, that might cause American consumers to look to buy goods from other countries, or if the tariffs are going to be placed on those other countries as well, then the only option would be to buy American. And that's what Trump wants to see. He wants to see manufacturing occur in America and for consumers to buy made in America goods.
Okay, what strategies might countries like China and Canada use to counter U.S. trade aggression?
That's a really good question. We know for China that they're going to continue to look to expand their presence in other markets, whether that's in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, Africa, South America. And China has had some success in expanding its presence in these markets over the past 5 to 10 years. So we should look for China to do more of that. The problem for Canada is its most important trading partner is the United States. So they're going to have to find a way to reach an agreement, some kind of accommodation with President Trump. And the way to do that would be when the USMCA, which is the U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement, comes up for review in 2026 or even earlier, is to reach some kind of deal with Trump that would allow U.S. products easier access to Canada. But it's definitely going to be a challenge for who's ever Canada's next prime minister, keeping in mind they're going into an election soon.
And could Trump's tariff policies lead to stronger domestic manufacturing, or will they strain international relationships further?
It certainly will strain international relationships, but at the same time, Trump doesn't care. He doesn't care if China's upset over U.S. tariffs. What he cares about is, will the manufacturing base in the United States expand? And the hope is that by placing higher tariffs on foreign-made goods, that manufacturers will expand in their presence in the United States, and that American consumers will buy American. Ultimately, that's what Trump wants. He wants American consumers to buy American and not buy foreign-made goods.
Okay, and how might the global economy react to another round of protectionist policies from the United States?
Well, some of the experts from multilateral organizations, for example, they do forecast that global GDP growth will be slightly reduced depending on the level of tariffs that Trump's imposed, the U.S. being the largest economy in the world. So if the U.S. is restricting the amount through higher tariffs, restricting the amount of foreign-made goods that come into the United States, then that's certainly going to hurt manufacturers and exporters in other countries like China and other places as well. And again, that will certainly take a few points, a few percentage points off of the global economic growth in 2025.
Okay, and what role will the World Trade Organization play in managing potential trade disputes during his term?
Yeah, that's also a really interesting question, because the reality is, in recent years, the WTO has become all but dormant. It's really absent from these bilateral disagreements that two trading partners have. The WTO dispute settlement mechanism has basically come to a halt because of a lack of judges. And we just don't see the WTO fulfilling the role that it was originally envisioned to do, which was to facilitate trade among nations. And with its near absence in recent years from the key trading disputes, it's hard to be optimistic that the WTO will be able to have any role going forward in trade disputes between the United States and other countries.
And my last question to you, how will Trump's approach to tariffs affect developing nations reliant on exports to the United States?
Yeah, you know, in the United States, historically, when I say historically, I mean over the last 20, 30 years, there's been some sympathy to offer lower tariff rates to developing countries, whether that was in Africa or other parts of the world. And that's actually been a consensus among Democrats and Republicans that, for example, to help Africa, there should be tariff privileges for African countries. Will that attract the attention of President Trump? Maybe not initially. His main focus is on the larger exporters, countries like China, Mexico, and Canada. Maybe increasingly countries in Southeast Asia where Chinese manufacturers have moved some of their production to countries like Vietnam or Malaysia. So the key countries on Trump's agenda are the main exporters to the United States, not necessarily smaller or poorer countries that enjoy tariff benefits. But look, Trump might say, this is crazy. Why are we giving low or zero tariff access to anyone? And those poor developing countries that do have low tariff or no tariff access to the United States market, they might become a target for Trump as well.
Okay, Ross, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We always appreciate your contribution.
Thank you.